March 2026. Floodwater recedes from the Turkish coastline near Bodrum, and where there should be nothing but silt and debris, something impossible is lying in the open, a stone road. 150 meters of hand-cut limestone, no mortar, no historical record, no explanation for how long it had been hidden beneath the water. One engineer became consumed with mapping every joint and angle of that structure. Within months, he was dead. And the part of this story no one was prepared for was not the road itself. It was where it was leading. After the water pulled away from the shoreline near Bodrum, the land did not return to normal. Instead, a stone surface lay exposed where only mud and driftwood should have been. Early in the morning, the first to notice were not archaeologists or surveyors, but local residents and beachgoers. People who had walked this stretch for years, never expecting to find anything but the familiar curve of the coast. Now, under a pale March sky, a line of pale limestone slabs cut through the sand, each block squared and set with a precision that could not be mistaken for nature's work. The stones ran in a straight line, stretching out toward the open water, as if drawn by the hand of someone with a clear destination in mind. There was no sign to explain what this was, no plaque, no fencing, just a road appearing out of nowhere, fading into the sea. The slabs were too regular, too deliberate, to be dismissed as a jumble of old building debris. People gathered, taking photographs with their phones, murmuring about how the stones seemed to vanish beneath the waves at low tide. The news spread quickly. By the afternoon of March 6th, the first images appeared online and in the local press, each photo capturing the same unsettling detail. The road did not end at the shore, but kept going, straight into water that had hidden it for as long as anyone could remember. What began as a curiosity became a documented fact, a disruption in the ordinary landscape. The questions started almost immediately. Who built this? How long had it waited beneath the tides? And where exactly was it meant to lead? No one could answer, but the sense of something old and deliberate, finally revealed, lingered long after the crowds drifted away. Official survey teams arrived before sunrise, moving quietly across the sand where the stone road had been revealed. Their work began without ceremony. Tripods raised, lines measured, notebooks opened in the cold air. At the center of this operation was the lead engineer, a man known for his restraint and precision, whose reputation for thoroughness had brought him to more than one difficult site. He walked the length of the exposed stones, pausing at intervals, recording each measurement himself, as if unwilling to trust the task to anyone else. The road stretched for nearly 150 meters, its length confirmed with calibrated tapes and GPS logs. Each slab was cut from pale limestone, rectangular, their edges too crisp and their arrangement too regular to be mistaken for anything but deliberate human work. The stones were thick, 20 centimeters, sometimes more, and laid so tightly together that a blade of grass could barely fit between them. There was no mortar, only the careful meeting of stone against stone, the join lines running in faint, unwavering paths down the length of the structure. Even under close inspection, the pattern held, a single, unbroken line pointing out toward water that had hidden it for generations. The engineer traced these joins with his finger, searching for clues in the way the blocks touched but never fused. He made notes about the chisel marks, the subtle slope of the surface, the way the stones seemed to anticipate the weight and movement of people who had vanished long ago. Around him, assistants logged coordinates and snapped photographs, but the engineer's attention remained fixed on the silent geometry beneath his boots. By noon, the Ministry of Culture had issued a statement. The area would be closed to the public, protected and studied before anyone else could set foot on the stones. Barriers would be erected, permits required. For now, Only the survey crew and their leader were permitted to move along the ancient road, documenting what had surfaced after centuries of darkness. Yet even as the official work advanced, an uneasy sense lingered, because the road itself was not the strangest part. That would come later, in ways none of them could have imagined. The line of stone, so precise and unwavering, does not wander blindly into the water. It points with intent, aimed straight toward Tavsan Adasi, the island once known as Mindos, a name that lingers in the ruins scattered across its low hills. This is no accident of erosion or a builder's whim. The road's orientation suggests a purpose, as if it was meant to bridge the water, drawing a line from the present shore to a destination now separated by the sea. With each meter, the structure grows less like a random scatter of masonry and more like a causeway, an engineered route, not a remnant or a fragment, but something built to connect two worlds. Archaeologists, pressed for answers, turn to the language of style. The blocks, the chisel marks, the method of laying stone against stone without mortar, all echo the Bronze Age, a time when Mindos was already a living city. Yet every estimate is a guess, drawn from the shape and wear of the stones. No radiometric data has been published, no carbon sample released to settle the question. The only numbers are those whispered in the margins of field notebooks, suggestions not proof. This uncertainty breeds more questions. If the road truly belongs to the Bronze Age, then the shoreline itself must have shifted. The water that now separates the mainland from Tavsan Adasi would once have been shallow, or perhaps land altogether. The stones stand as evidence of a crossing that no longer exists, a route erased not by time alone, but by the slow, relentless movement of the sea. Yet in the official records, there is no mention of such a crossing, no map that admits it ever was. The contradiction hangs in the air, unsolved, as if the road is waiting for someone to see what has always been hidden beneath the tides. The sense of direction, of a journey interrupted, lingers long after the stones vanish beneath the returning water. The engineer's first days on site passed in the measured routine of any official survey. He logged the length of the stone line, checked the angle of its run, and marked each slab's edge with a practiced hand. There was nothing in his manner to suggest this was anything but another assignment, another oddity to be mapped and filed. But the strangeness of the structure did not fade with familiarity. Instead, it pressed in closer the longer he worked. The numbers refused to settle. Every measurement matched itself, yet the road's existence refused to fit any map, any record, any expectation. After the crew left each evening, he lingered. The sand cooled beneath his boots as he walked the slabs again, tape in hand, repeating the same stretches of stone, as if the answer might reveal itself on the third or fourth pass. Sometimes he would kneel, tracing the chisel marks along the edge of a block, comparing the wear to sketches in his notebook. He redrew cross-sections late into the drawing night, the lines growing more certain, then more tentative, as if the act of drawing could force the truth out of the stones. He pulled old survey records from the archives, combing through brittle pages for any mention of a causeway or crossing. Each document came up empty. The official map showed only open water, the oldest even less. The silence in the records became its own kind of evidence, a gap that gnawed at him. He began to fill the margins of his field notes with questions, arrows, sketches layered over sketches. The road was not just a structure to be measured, it had become a problem to be solved, and the solution, if it existed, lay somewhere between the stones and the missing lines on the map. His colleagues noticed his devotion, the way he arrived before sunrise and stayed after sunset, but said little. To them, he was simply thorough. But in the solitude of the closed site, the work shifted. The survey became private, almost secret, a dialogue between one man and a road that should not exist. Each night, as the tide crept back and the stones vanished beneath the water, he packed his notebook with more questions than answers, drawn deeper into the puzzle with every return. Old stories that once drifted through the town's evenings began to resurface, no longer just the province of elders and bored children. The legend of a lost pathway, told in low voices for generations, suddenly seemed less like folklore and more like a memory waiting to be proven. Some recalled tales of traders walking a stone bridge to the island, a route that vanished with the tides and was said to return only for those who knew where to look. Now, with the slabs exposed for all to see, rumour outpaced fact. The road was no longer just a find, it was a magnet for speculation. On social media and in the corners of local cafes, the story grew. People spoke of ancient networks, of roads that might have once stretched across the Aegean, linking lost cities and forgotten empires. The idea was as seductive as it was unverifiable. Each new theory, each whispered connection, pulled the discovery further from the careful language of surveys and closer to legend. News articles that followed did not linger on measurements or stonework. Instead, they reached for drama, calling it the Atlantis Road, hinting at mysteries beneath the sea, suggesting that this was only the beginning of some greater revelation. The site itself changed under the weight of attention. What began as a strip of stone under a grey sky became a place thick with meaning, a crossroads of memory and imagination. The road was now a story people told about themselves and their past, not just a structure to be measured and mapped. The facts remained, silent and unresolved, while the legend grew bolder with each retelling. And behind every new version, the question lingered. What else might lie beneath the water, waiting to be found or remembered? The road story did not end with the last survey. Months after the stones vanished again beneath the tide, news travelled quietly through engineering circles. The lead surveyor was dead. He had drowned while retrieving a piece of equipment from the water's edge, alone, in the grey wash of late autumn. There was no storm, no crowd, just the hush of the shoreline and the cold pull of the current. By the time help arrived, it was already too late. The official review came swiftly. Inspectors combed through logs, checked safety records, and traced the engineer's steps back through the final day. Their findings were blunt. Rescue lines had not been set, the required spotter was absent, and the protocols meant to prevent such accidents had been ignored. The companies responsible faced fines, their names printed in terse lines in the local press. There was no mention of the stone road in the report, only a list of missed precautions and a warning about the dangers of working alone near water. Yet outside the language of liability, the story refused to settle. The timing was too strange for some to ignore. A man so closely tied to the road's rediscovery, lost to the water only months after his work began. Rumours flickered in the gaps left by the facts. In the quiet of local cafes, stories grew. The road did not want to be found, or the past had claimed another witness. Each retelling drifted further from the measured tone of the official report, feeding on the unease that had lingered since the first stone was uncovered. There was no evidence, no pattern, no curse, just the raw coincidence of a death that happened in the shadow of an old mystery. But in the minds of those who watched the road appear and vanish with the tide, the boundary between accident and omen blurred. The engineer's name became another part of the story, carried on in whispers, as if the stones themselves had not finished speaking. Stone roads do not simply vanish, yet history is filled with the evidence of things built, lost, and then found again when the world shifts around them. Along the coasts and river mouths of the Mediterranean, the line between land and water is always moving, sometimes by inches, sometimes by meters, sometimes in a single night of wind and tide. When the sea pulls away, it reveals what it once claimed: walls, pavements, causeways, the bones of forgotten bridges. What seems impossible at first, a road that runs beneath the waves, becomes, under the weight of time and weather, a pattern as old as civilization itself. The slabs exposed near Bodrum are not the first to reappear from beneath the water. In the Adriatic, divers found a stone causeway 5 meters below the surface, stretching from the Croatian island of Korčula to a vanished settlement. That road, built nearly 7,000 years ago, lay hidden under mud and silt until a storm shifted the seabed, pulling back the curtain of time for a moment. Archaeologists there traced the route by hand, stone by stone, matching the chisel marks to Neolithic tools, the layout to ancient blueprints. Radiocarbon dates from the timber buried in the sediment confirmed its age, placing it centuries as before the first written records of the region. Sea level rise is not a modern threat alone. For thousands of years, the world's waters have crept forward, swallowing fields, harbours and roads built too close to the edge. A causeway can vanish beneath a single season's storm surge or be slowly drowned by the relentless rise of the tide. What the flood takes, it sometimes returns, if only for a day, or a week, or a single strange season. The stones near Bodrum, like those in Croatia, stand as proof. A road can disappear, not by myth or accident, but by the slow, patient work of the sea. And when the water slips away, the past is waiting just beneath the surface, as if it had never left at all. The stones that surface near Bodrum invite speculation, but their reality is more grounded than legend allows. The evidence, measured and catalogued by survey teams, points to a deliberate construction, a raised path of limestone blocks aligned with the vanished crossing to Tavsan Adasi. The most responsible reading is also the most ancient, a tidal causeway built to bridge the shifting line between land and water. In eras when the sea was lower or the shore broader, such a route would have linked the mainland to the island, passable on foot when the tide fell away. The stones do not require a lost civilization or a supernatural force, only the slow, practical work of people adapting to a coastline always in motion. The mystery, then, is not one of impossibility, but of memory. The road's disappearance beneath the water was a matter of time and tide, not magic. Its reappearance, brief and startling, is a reminder of how easily the world can forget its own architecture. The engineer's death, so closely tied in rumour to the road's rediscovery, holds no proof of anything beyond the hazards of solitary work at the edge of the sea. The official review found only missed precautions, not a curse or a pattern. What remains is the unease that comes from confronting the limits of record and recall, a sense that the past can surface without warning, and that the story, even when explained, is never quite finished. Even now, the stone road lies beneath shifting tides, unmapped by history and restless in the dark. Engineers and skeptics still debate its origin, but the water always returns, erasing answers and deepening the silence. In an age obsessed with certainty, some discoveries refuse to yield. The real cost of uncovering the past is not what we find, but what follows us home. What would you risk to know what was never meant to surface?